second time in a week, a Lyon game was marred by fan violence. The kickoff was delayed by 55 minutes when a Bastia fan from the East Stand jumped onto the pitch to attack Lyon players. The match was finally abandoned following a second invasion at half-time. Bastia's East Stand had been reopened for the first time after their 3-match ban for their racial chants against Mario Balotelli. Well, to talk more on the recent crowd trouble in French football is Andy Scott, who joins us live in Paris. Andy, thank you very much for coming on to Beyond the Game. Now, why was there tension between the Bastia fans and Lyon players?
Well, essentially, in the build-up to the game, obviously in the warm-up, there was, as happens in every game, the Lyon players were taking shots at goal, and some of these shots were off target and ended up in the stands and appeared to hit some of the Bastia supporters, which they took objection to. And very quickly after that, things began to descend into the ugly scenes of violence that we saw then repeated as the players went off at half-time. There is obviously more to it than that. It should be noted that the last time that Lyon played Bastia in a league game in Lyon in November, the Bastia coach at the time, François Ciccolini, who's since been sacked, he'd said after that game, Bastia had 2 players sent off in that match. There were some ugly scenes, not in the same way as we saw this weekend, but it wasn't exactly a particularly pleasant finish to that game. And the Bastia coach at the time said after that match that the Lyon players should be ready for the return game. They better make sure that they're not feeling unwell and that we'll sort things out like real men, like Corsicans, which is a slightly concerning phrase in the context of yesterday. But I think it's hard to pinpoint any real acrimony between the two clubs specifically. There has been, as you mentioned before, with the Mario Balotelli incident, the racist chants aimed at the Nice striker, the Italian striker, during a game a few months ago in Corsica. There obviously are precedents. The stand, the same end of the stadium, was shut for several games after that, and it was only reopened for yesterday's match. And there have been several other incidents in past seasons involving Bastia at the stadium. There is another incident at the end of the game against Nantes a few weeks ago that is currently being investigated by the authorities in France, and they're yet to rule as to what punishment will be handed down. But the issue is essentially we have the island of Corsica here, where obviously there have long been disagreements, is one way of perhaps putting it, between the Corsicans and the French mainland. And often when a club from the French mainland comes to play in Bastia, not just in Bastia, but also in Ajaccio, there are 2 clubs in Ajaccio in the top 2 divisions in France, and we have seen, unfortunately, problems, violence of some nature on many occasions when clubs from the mainland have come to play against Corsican teams. So this is not an isolated incident, but obviously the extent of the violence is particularly nasty on this occasion.
Okay, well, of course, we've got Lyon coming to Istanbul this week to face Besiktas after a very problematic first leg. Do you expect to see more fan violence this week?
Well, I wouldn't say I expect to see more fan violence. Obviously, I hope not to see any more fan violence, because what has happened to Lyon in particular in the last few days has been particularly nasty. But, you know, the incidents in Lyon and the incidents in Bastia, we can't say they're connected. The trouble in Lyon, I mean, I wasn't in the stadium, but my understanding of it is that obviously there was supporters who were said to be supporting the Turkish team, Besiktas, who got involved in a trouble and were perhaps, Lyon would say, were responsible for it, and it led to Lyon fans ending up on the pitch to get away from things being thrown from the upper tiers of the stadium in Lyon. These Besiktas fans, many of them, I think there were about 20,000 in the stadium in Lyon for last week's game. Many of them, it is said, came not from Turkey but from Germany. Obviously, there's a large Turkish community there. And in France, there are a lot of Turkish people. There's a large Turkish community in France too. So I think we can expect that the fans at the game in Istanbul this week will not necessarily be the same ones that we saw in Lyon. And I think, you know, we shouldn't take it from that there will definitely be more violence. I certainly hope there won't be more violence. Obviously, UEFA will be keeping a very close eye on things. And Lyon and Besiktas will be in trouble already based on what happened in the first leg. I think from Lyon's viewpoint, they will, of course, be concerned about the potential for violence in Istanbul. And it should be noted as well that they've already been in Turkey in the last 12 months and were there at a difficult time politically in Turkey last year and ended up having to have a friendly match postponed and leave the city of Istanbul in their pre-season preparations. So they've got bad memories, if you like, of a recent trip to Istanbul. There is nervousness about this return game, but I think we shouldn't take it for granted that there will be more violence this Thursday. Certainly we hope that's not the case, but UEFA and Lyon and Besiktas should be prepared for any eventuality.
Okay, Andy, thank you very much.